This video is going to be all about how to solve linear equation word problems. And we're going to use this really handy method above my head to solve it. It's called cubes. And what's really handy is it breaks down the annotating process and the solving process for word problems. And we're going to see that with two examples. The first problem being our exit ticket from last week. So we have a skydiver that's in a plane 2,000 feet above the ground. He jumps out of the plane, releases his parachute, and descends at a rate of 40 feet per second. So we want to write an equation for this scenario. We want to name the x and y intercepts, and we want to see what they represent given the context of the problem. So going through cubes, the first thing that we want to do is we want to start to underline or circle all those key numbers and units. So we're circling 2,000 feet and we're circling 40 feet per second. Then we're going to go to U for underlining the questions. We have multiple questions here, so I also want to number my questions. So 1 is write an equation. My second question is naming what the x and y intercepts are. And the third question is, what do the x and y intercepts represent? Now I want to box math clue words. So I'm going to box descends at a rate because this is a clue word telling us that we're going to be going down, we're going to be going negative direction. Other than that, I didn't see anything else that was super important. So another thing that I'm going to do for E is JK, I also saw the clue word, which is per, 40 feet per second, which is telling us that we're going to have some sort of multiplication there. Now I want to evaluate and eliminate. So I'm eliminating this extra fluffy stuff that doesn't really tell me too much about my math problem. And as far as evaluating, I'm going to list the information that I also need and have. So I know I need to write an equation, and this is going to be a linear equation. Then I want to also write down, I'm going to need my x-intercept. I'm going to need to find out what that is. And then I'm also going to need to find out what the y-intercept is. So those are the steps that I'm taking to solve this problem. And now all I have to do is solve and show my work. So up top, you can see that I'm writing that 2,000 feet is our initial value. I'm also noting that 40 feet per second, that's our slope, right? That's the distance, that's that constant rate that we are decreasing by, right? So my equation, my linear equation, since it's a constant rate of change, is y equals mx plus b. My m is going to be that negative 40 feet per second. And my b is going to be that 2,000. How did I know that it's negative 40 feet per second? Well, descends. That word descends means that we're going to go down. So then, to solve for our x-intercept, we're going to have to set y equal to 0 now that we have our equation, and then we want to find out what x is. So I subtract 2,000 from both sides because I'm trying to get x by itself. And then I'm going to divide negative 40 by both sides to get x by itself. So then we're left with x equals 50. So x tells us how many seconds. So we're saying after 50 seconds, our feet away from the ground or our feet above the ground is going to be 0. That means that we're touching the ground after 50 seconds. Okay, so I did that by just looking at, okay, what units is 50 referring to? What units is our y of 0 referring to? And that tells us what our context is going to be. Now to find our y-intercept, I'm just plugging in 0 for x. When I do that, I get our initial value of y equals 2,000 feet. It's an initial value, so that just means that's the starting height. That's the height that our skydiver is going to start at. And then that'll be it for problem 1. And this is how the cubes method works. So we're going to try it with one more problem. Our second problem reads, a caterer charges $120 to cater at a party for 15 people and $200 for 25 people. Assume that the cost, y, is a linear function of the number of x people. Write an equation in slope-intercept form for this function. What does the slope represent? And how much would a party for 40 people cost? So we're going to use the cubes method again to solve this problem. So the first thing we're going to do is start circling all those key numbers in units. We've got $120, 15 people, $200, and 25 people. We also have this 40 people, right? Then we're underlining our questions. We have multiple questions again. We want to know the equation in slope-intercept form. We want to know what the slope represents. And we also want to know how much would a party for 40 people cost. So those are our 3 questions. We don't always have 3 questions. These examples just happen to. Our clue word here is linear function. We want to know that we're writing a linear function. Now, while we're evaluating this problem, we want to remember that this 15 people for $120 and these 25 people for $200, these are our x and y pairs. So I'm just writing down our given information, which is those x, y pairs. X is people and y is cost. I know that because it says it in the problem. The slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. That's just vocabulary. And then we're going to eventually plug in x for 40 because we want to know how much is a party going to cost for 40 people, and people is x. So let's answer the first part and find our equation, y equals mx plus b. Well, we got to find our slope using the 2 points that were given. And we're going to use that, we're going to find that using the rate of change formula, which is that y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're taking our 200 minus 120, which is our y values, then we're taking our 25 minus 15, which is our x values, subtracting them over each other, we get 8 for our slope. Then what we want to find is our y-intercept. We want to find our b. We weren't given a b, so sometimes it's nice to just assume that it's going to be 0. I mean, if we have 0 people, then we know our party's going to cost $0. But say we're nervous and we didn't know that reasoning and we wanted to double check. Well, we take what we have of the equation so far, and then we plug in one of the points that we do know. So we're plugging in all of our knowns into the equation, and then we're just solving for b. And what we find is that b is in fact still 0. So our equation we finally know is y equals 8x plus 0, which is the same thing as y equals 8x. Now we want to know what that slope means. Well, that slope If we divide x by both sides, then we have y over x. Y is the cost and x is the number of people. So this is the cost for every person. 8 is the cost per person at the party. And now we want to know, how much would a party for 40 people cost? Well, we find that out by, people is x, right? We said then plug in x for 40. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's plug in 40 for x. And when we do that, we just get 320. So we know that it's going to cost $320 for 40 people at the party because it costs $8 per person. So we have successfully, again, used cubes to solve another word problem. I really highly recommend you do them in tackling word problems. This isn't just for linear equation word problems. You can use these for all kinds of word problems, okay? As usual, email me, call me, text me if you have any questions. Have a good day, guys.